back here with another episode of the True Strength Life podcast. I'm with a hip-hop legend, a Christian hip-hop pioneer, a pastor now, guy who's worn many hats and done it all. So
Wow.
I also want to say real quick, this is for all you guys that were in my youth group growing up, where we went to this guy's concert, and I was the only one standing up and dancing at his concert, and you were all making fun of me, and now I'm interviewing him. So here we go.
What show was this?
This was in Philly after a Wings game, lacrosse Wings game.
Is it a soccer team?
No, lacrosse. Oh no, you're right. It was.
Yeah, I remember
soccer. Yeah.
Wow. I told him, well, that was a soccer. It's okay if they sat down, and then they were up in the bleachers. I'm okay with that. Yeah, I totally remember that show. Lights were up. We had to go on that tiny little stage. It was me and Todd. I remember that very clearly, and we had in-ear monitors. I don't know why I remember all that, but I do.
Yep. Yeah, we were all the way to the right. I was the only one standing up in like the whole section. And from my youth group, there was like 30 of us, and they were all just like making fun of me the whole time.
Too cool for school. How the turntables have turned.
That's funny. So, yeah, give a couple second. Who are you? Who am I talking to right now?
Who am I? Who is any of us?
Yeah,
It's
right.
such a metaphorical question. I was born in Miami, grew up in Tampa. Parents met in Brooklyn. Basically, grew up in Central Florida for just a very short amount of time, but mainly spent my formative years in the Tampa Bay area. Came to Christ at 15 when I moved down to where I am now, which is Southwest Florida, Cape Coral area. And probably started messing around with hip-hop as early as 12, 13 maybe. Jesus kind of flipped all that up in a lot of ways and gave me a new purpose. But I didn't sit down and go, I'm going to do this. It was from breaking my nose pole vaulting my senior year of high school. I wound up stuck at home, wrote my first Christian rap. Next thing you know, I probably rocked it at some camp somewhere. And that just started the snowball effect. So it's funny you say this because I just found a flyer today that's almost exactly 25 years old to this day. It was me opening up for the Gospel Gangsters back in the day.
Gospel Gangsters.
Even though it's 25 years ago, man, it feels like yesterday. Like the time has gone by like that. And while I was kind of starting my adolescence or my 20-somethings, other people have, like you yourself, like what you're talking about, like have grown up. I've watched you growing up in front of my eyes. I'm kidding. But it's cool to see these things kind of like people stick with you over the years and stuff. So
yeah, it makes you feel any better. I was 4 years old when that happened.
Yeah, I hear this a lot. I'm like, well, that's your fault. You should have been born earlier.
That's funny. I don't think I actually said it. I'm with KJ52, aka Jonah Sorrentino. I did say your last name right?
Yeah, actually, very good job. There's a lot of syllables in that last one.
Yeah. So you go by Jonah now. You've retired the KJ52.
More from a music standpoint, but you can certainly call me KJ. That's more for my own personal thing.
Okay.
As far as like I didn't change my social media, but I would, if people feel so inclined, feel free to call me Jonah. That's my real name. So it's more about trying to add more of a personal connection to people's lives if they choose to go that way. But if to you I'm KJ52, no problem. You know what I mean?
So to clear up any confusion, you're retiring the KJ52, kind of brand, but you're not retiring from music.
No. And I mean, I think, I contemplated a little bit of that probably a year ago, 6 months ago, 3 months ago. But I believe that God's, gifts are without repentance. And I think there was no particular reason to do that outside of, if I didn't still feel passionate about it or it still didn't excite me or, the things of it still didn't move me creatively, than I probably would have. And it's funny, again, I'm in such a reminiscent mode. Stuff keeps popping up on my Facebook memories that a year ago today I was writing the final chapter of my What Happened Was book. And it was literally the same weekend where my last tour ended, where, I was really contemplating what my next move was. And it's interesting because I was in such a holding pattern that to look back now to be where I'm at now, it's like, it's just phenomenal. It's amazing what a year can do,
Yeah. Yeah. I think, now just help me, cause I consider myself a creative in some sense, but I'm not an artist. I'm not in I'm in a different kind of way. You're a creative artist, that type of person. So, okay, roll with me for a second. How does that, I feel like you would have a hard time actually saying, okay, I'm done doing music. I don't see that as being fully possible for somebody like you.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is I've met guys that have, and so I think maybe in my head I felt like that's what you're just supposed to do. You know what I mean? Guys that were a few years ahead of me that I looked up to in the music genre, they did just that. They put the mic down, they walked away. It was like a clean break. And I follow a lot of old school rappers that that I might have looked up to, and it's funny, they just don't make new music. And when you listen to them talk, they're like, yeah, don't have any desire to make music. Just gonna keep doing my hits from back in the day. And I think, I don't know. I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way at all. It's even funny now being in these quarantines. Like, I have all this extra time sometimes. I'm like, man, I should write a song. You know what I mean? Like, or I should work on this or this. And
yeah,
there's nothing really to stop me. So I'm like, well, why stop?
So you working on new music?
Sort of. I mean, basically, like, what happened was I started doing a project strictly for my Patreon called Faith Over Fear. And there was just like some really dope old gospel samples that I was like, man, it'd be kind of dope to flip this. So I had Poetics get in there and start flipping these samples up. And I was really just writing about what was happening. It was probably more therapeutic than anything, which I never really used to write like that. And just putting them strictly on my Patreon, because I can't put them out because of these samples that are on there. But then it was like, all of a sudden I started going back and like looking back at some of the songs that kids like, people like you grew up as kids. And I started remaking those songs just to hear what they sound like. Songs that I was like, it was funny after taking a minute to like have Poetics on the beat and just messing around with it again. I'm like, yeah, this song's I kind of have a new appreciation for this. So, and I still do my Freestyle Fridays. I've been kicking around a few ideas, but there's been nothing like, I'm going to do this, you know what I mean? Like, specifically. But I do like the Patreon model because you can be very specific, you can be very focused, and you can kind of do whatever you want. It's unfiltered creativity, Okay. So,
and has that been consistent for you?
No, I'm actually, I've had a Patreon for about 2 years, but I haven't really done a lot with it. So now, I've just been channeling everything into the Patreon to see how people would react. And it's been a slow burn. I mean, it's a couple people a week or something like that are joining. But the ones that are joining are probably my most intense fan base. Okay. Like, it's those ones that I can go, here's a demo from 97 from this particular record, This is the only place I'm going to put it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Here's
and they got it on repeat for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I mean, maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. It's just it's like you got your homies, then you got your close friends, then you got like your best friend. These are like my best friends who you could just kind of show anything to, and you don't worry about, is it a hit or a miss, Yeah. So, but I have some other things in mind. I'm just, again, still debating what the next move is. Obviously, the quarantine's thrown us all into a tailspin.
So I have I guess kind of a business question, sure. or approaching it from more of a business side. and I don't want your Patreons to hear this and maybe take it the wrong way, like, you only do this for money and that type of thing. But I know that you went independent. I don't know if it was a while ago or if it was right before you
About 3
started.
years ago.
Okay, so it was near when you started.
Self-independent 3 years ago, fully independent maybe 5, 6 years ago.
Okay. So when that transition happened, because you were on a label for a long time, right?
Yeah, man, I did the thing that nobody ever does, is that I actually fulfilled my contract.
Yeah,
Like,
you don't hear
I
about
don't know
that
anybody
much.
that's ever like fulfilled all the options on the contract. That's literally what happened. And
Yeah.
so there wasn't really any need to re-sign. And to be honest with you, it was a completely different company by the time I finished,
Yeah.
So
So once you were done that and then you were independent, did you have kind of this moment where you were like, man, this is really scary. What in the world am I going to do? But also, dang, this is awesome. I can literally do whatever I want. And
yeah,
how was that kind of for you?
well, it depends on what point we're talking. So when my deal was up, I signed a 3-year licensing deal with my manager.
Okay.
So technically that was independent, but it's not like what we're talking about now. And that kind of was a disaster at the end of it. But going the crowdfund route, that was in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
That was hands down the scariest thing I had done, because to hedge my bets and to now the label is the fans. And I had people say, oh, don't do it. Once you start doing crowdfunding, your career's over. That's what old retired artists do. And it was not even close to that. Like, it was the opposite. Like, the best thing, I should have done it way earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I should have completely done that. But they met the need every single time. I mean, you're talking 5 projects since then, 2 books, a documentary, all crowdfunded. Yeah. And my last one was the biggest one I've done yet.
Wow. Talk about that last one, your last project.
Yeah, so that was Victory Lap. Yeah, so that's Victory Lap. I said it was my last KJ52 album, last KJ52 book. I mean, it's just that. I was at a point where I was like, you know what? If I had to define this period of my life, it's Victory Lap time. You know what I mean? I feel like in a lot of ways I've crossed the finish line on a lot of things I wanted to do. It's time to move on to the next phase, but not in the sense of like, screw you, I'm out the door. You know what I mean? Like, it was more like, man, let's have a victory lap together,
Mm-hmm.
So the songs on the project were all songs inspired by chapters in the book, and the chapters in the book were really just a continuation from the last book. The last book was just stories. So the victory lap stories were stories related to what I felt were more of a victory lap story. So they were more about the milestones, you know what I mean? They were like, I put it in the way of like, what would go through somebody's head when they ran a victory lap,
Yeah.
So.
Cool. So it also was kind of built-in marketing with saying that it was your, this is my last project. I remember seeing a lot of your posts, and you obviously were pushing, this is my last KJ52 project. And then you always had people saying, oh, you're done. They were flipping out. And you kept having to go back and say, no, I'm not done doing music, but KJ52 is done. But I think in the long run that helped you. And I'm sure you thought about all that too. Yeah.
Dude, no question. Of course it helped me. But I mean, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. I knew by doing this for so long that people hear what they want to hear.
Yep.
So it didn't matter how many times I said this, they're going to hear what they want to hear this.
Yeah.
And, I hate to say, it's like breaking up with a girl that you're like that you've been threatening to break up with, and then you finally do it, and she's been ignoring you the whole time, and then finally when you're like, I'm out, she's like, no, don't go. You know what I mean? So in a lot of ways, there was a lot of that. I mean, there was a lot of people that had been not really paying attention that all of a sudden woke up and paid attention. You know what I mean? That the reality is being consistent and being faithful can sometimes be the worst thing, because familiarity breeds contempt,
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what's sad about the human condition, but that's just the reality. The longer you're around and you consistently do stuff that is quality, and I don't mean that in an arrogant sense, but I feel like everything I've done is quality. You know what I mean? People just, I stopped doing Friday Freestyle for years. As soon as I started doing it back up again consistently, by the time I was 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks into it, a month into it, 2 months into it, it doesn't have the same. It just doesn't have the same effect. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you don't have all the same people tuning in every single time and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. But if I stop it, then someone goes, "Yo, man, when you gonna do Friday Freestyle?" I'm like, "I just did it."
Yeah. That was last week.
So, and you know what? Listen, I don't want to fault people completely because sometimes there's just algorithms that are happening from a social media standpoint.
Yeah.
People move on to other phases in life.
Yep.
You know, there is a lot of things. Like someone literally wrote me this the other day. They're like, "I really miss your music." I'm like,
it's out there.
didn't go anywhere. Like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, how do you want me to answer that? I'm sorry you haven't paid attention. I mean, I was like, it's still there. There's a lot of music there. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. I mean, look, I don't mean that in a complaining sense because a lot of people don't get to be at that point, 20 years of doing anything. But now I'm at a point where I'm just having fun with it. Like me and Todd, the guy who did, my first album, 7th Avenue, like we sat down and just went through song by song of that album. I did a podcast about it. And it was like actually enjoyable for me to go back and think about my mind state and hear his perspective. And,
that was pretty cool. That was a good episode.
But it's only like really rap nerds that get into that aspect of it. You know what I mean? Which is fine. I don't mind that either. But,
that album was one of the first Christian hip hop albums I got. And I got it from youth group. I think I had won a game or something, and the pastor had like a random bin of CDs that he had got from a store or something like that, and he was just like giving them out. And I had never heard of you. I didn't know that it was you, it was rap or anything like that. But at that point, I knew that I liked rap, so I purely picked it based off of the cover.
Yeah, it's funny how that was like a thing back then, right? Like, you'd go into a Christian bookstore and just buy a Christian rap CD based on, well, the guy looks cool or something like that. You know what I mean? Yep. And now it's so different.
I remember it is very different. The first, it was yours, Ambassadors, Christology, T-Bone, Gospel Alpha, Mega Funky Boogie Disco Music. They were, and Up Rock Records, Volume 1 mixtape or Volume 2, something like that you were on. They were my first, I think they were my first 4. And it was exactly what you just said. I got them based off of the cover because I didn't know that they were rap. I'd never heard of them beforehand. But off the cover, I was like, yeah, there's a pretty good chance this is going to be music I like. So.
Yeah, it's like for me to not put my face on one of the album covers. Like I think this was around 2012, maybe. I was like, this is gonna be a problem. I was like, people aren't gonna recognize my album if I don't put my face on it. I didn't mean it like in an arrogant sense, but it was just like you had to do these moves to sell records. Like it was again, it's just such a weird time to think we're in now, but everything has its benefits and its drawbacks.
I wanted to, before I forgot to bring this up, kind of going back to your books. Now, you did something I saw I have never seen somebody do before. You actually put your audiobooks on Apple Music.
Absolutely.
So is that something that you did with your latest book too? Because I had seen it with your first book. I didn't see your second book yet though. Yeah,
so the audiobook process actually is kind of slow of actually getting it approved. So I'm approved to go to those. Now, there might be two things we're talking about. So my audiobook is on Audible, which also puts it on iTunes. But a couple months after I got it on there, I actually went and released it as a quote-unquote mixtape. So that also put it back onto iTunes so I could get it streamed.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to probably see it there twice. You'll see it as What Happened Was, and then it'll be What Happened Was, the mixtape. So the mixtape version has like soundtrack music underneath it. I put up some like old demos and stuff like that on there. So it's more of an audio drama-y, I guess. I don't know what you want to call it. So the new one, like literally I had submitted it, gotten it approved by Audible, and then the coronavirus hit. And I get a message that basically says it takes like 30 days to get approved. So I'm like, freak, I'm going to be sitting around forever before the next one gets on there. So you can get it, but you can only get it on my website as an audiobook.
Okay.
So yes, that is definitely a plan. Absolutely. It's just like, we're all in a holding pattern. Yeah. I don't know why a virus would slow down audio approval, but whatever.
It's everything's been delayed. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Okay, so you were heavily involved in music. That was your career for a long time. Obviously doing ministry with that, or that was your ministry. Now transition into currently where you at?
Yeah. So I took a pastoral position as of January 4th. It's at a church that was down the street from the church where I was previously serving. Now, my previous positions were, I hate to say, a glorified volunteer because I was still traveling like crazy. So at the previous church I was at for the last couple of years, I was interim youth pastor, I was teaching pastor, I was communications pastor. But, really just meant I spoke like every couple months or something like that. Yeah. This was a full dynamic shift to go on. To go full time, to basically shift what my livelihood would be. So my title was associate pastor / go team director. I was basically hired on to coordinate and enhance their volunteer teams. But also, I was consulting and speaking in the youth group, in the college ministry, and in the junior high ministry. But actually, and I haven't even made this announcement, but within the last month, I've been transitioning. I should say not even transitioning, it's one more thing. Creative director. So essentially right now, like when people go, what do you do at the church? I'm like, well, it's more like, what do I not do? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and even now in this whole quarantine, like I've had to readapt what my position is. But it's just crazy. Like everything I've learned in the last 20 years doing music has applied so much to what I do now. Mm. So, but the nuts and bolts of it is I'm creative director, which means I'm in charge of basically producing the services, all the things that go into it. But I also have a creative team underneath me where we produce content. I oversee a little bit of everything from the graphics to the video to the actual programming to the messaging to, I might speak into the social media. I might, that's not, again, I'm over volunteer development, which is odd because it's hard to get volunteers when you're in quarantine. But yeah, spoke at the youth group, spoke at the junior high, spoke at the college, and then next month I speak at Sunday morning, which is really just like saying I'm going to be on a TV show called The Online Experience. But yeah, they laugh. They laugh. They're like, of all the times for you to come on staff at a church, like you picked the possible weirdest time possible. You know what I mean?
Just God's timing for some reason.
Yeah, but it hasn't felt weird. Like honestly, it's not. Man, 20 years of doing music, you can kind of do anything.
Has it been weird? Has this provided for you basically like a steady income that maybe you're not used to?
Oh my gosh. Listen, I don't mean this in like a na sense, but I picked the perfect time to get off the road. Like me and my wife talked about this routinely. Like I can't even imagine how dead in the water I'd be right now had I continued down the path I was on. Because it'd be over. I mean, there's no way to make money at all. You know what I mean? Like, this is it. I talked to a lot of my guys that are my peers, and they're just like, I don't know, man. Might go work at Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, Yeah, more people have time to, stream music and all, but streaming doesn't bring in anything. And, if you don't have any money coming in, how much can you really put out money to create more stuff? So,
But it's actually funny you say that. Streaming actually has gone down because
really,
people now are not driving and listening to music.
that's true, actually.
And people are not in the gym. So
I
streaming is actually down.
I should have actually thought of that because one of the podcasts I listened to, he mentioned that he said our listeners have gone way down because nobody's driving to work anymore where they would typically listen. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, everything has gone from long form to short form, low substance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's been interesting. It's been very interesting because I've put stuff up on my Instagram that I thought would really connect, and it was stuff of substance, stuff that is like trivial and trite and ridiculous and totally surface level through the roof. And
interesting.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
But it's not like I didn't have shows. So that's the thing. Like I was still doing shows. I had shows on my days off, and I had a very full summer. All that's gone, So that was like supplement income that I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do now. You know what I mean? So, but again, yeah, I picked the perfect time to get out of the business.
It's true. It's true. So, all right, I know that you don't have much longer, so I want to completely shift gears, and I'm going to throw some quicker things at you. First one. So you've been married for a long time. How long has it been?
It will be 22 years in June.
Okay, 22 years. That first, right off the bat, not even knowing your context of your career or anything like that, that right off the bat, you don't hear about much nowadays, unfortunately. So then you also throw in that, for most of that time, you were basically a full-time artist, which you definitely don't hear about good relationships. So I guess what I'm asking is, speak on that for a second. Like, give any advice or kind of how that's played out for you.
Well, the one thing that was weird that I didn't realize at the time is our relationship actually started long distance. So I met her, we started dating, and I went off to Bible college 2.5 hours away. So I was having to figure out right from the jump what it means to be in a relationship with somebody, but you're still apart, Yeah. And so even back then, I was making moves to find a way to make it work. I didn't realize that at the time, but that's absolutely what was happening. When I got my record deal and I hit the road, I made it a point that she was going to go with me, And so for those first 4 months of heavy touring, which was far from glamorous, you know what I mean? She was there because we had only been married a year and a half, and I just knew it wasn't going to happen. So, she was on board. I mean, we were on the same page, you know what I mean? Like, I hate to sound this way, but like she knew what she signed up for. You know what I mean?
No, it's true.
So, but even then, once it became less feasible for her to travel with me, once the shift in my travel went from in my minivan, driving like crazy, that was the first couple of years, then suddenly I could start flying. Once the flying aspect came in, then it was more about setting boundaries. It was like, you know what? I'm not going to be gone for more than, 7 to 10 days maximum, if that. So there were times where I would take tours where it was like a 4-month tour. Might be 2 days off in between show dates. I might be clear on the other side of the country. And it made more economic sense for me to stay out. It made more physical, out of travel, it would make more sense for me to stay there. I'm exhausted, you know what I mean? But no, I'm up at 5 in the morning. I'm catching a 5 a.m. flight. I'm flying halfway across the country back to maybe be home for 48 hours. And then to get back up and fly back out to the tour. I lived that lifestyle for a long time. It meant sometimes turning shows down. It meant also that times when I was home for long stretches, I wasn't just home physically. I was home, I was present. When we had our first kid, I took a whole month off, on purpose.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was it.
You know what I'm hearing is that you made sure that she knew and everybody else around you knew that she was priority and your relationship was priority.
Yeah, and I don't want to be like, man, I really rocked it. I was so good about the whole thing. Man, I made so many mistakes. We had so many fights, so many arguments. There was times where, you're slamming the door and you're getting on an airplane, and it's like you're not reconciling until you land, or maybe a day, maybe not. It never went like 3 days or something crazy like that. But, and the other thing was important was like to be showing like it wasn't just all done in vain. It was like if I took this tour, you're going to get a new car, like there is an actual trade-off. And I don't mean like I'm going to pay you pay you off with a new car. I'm just saying like if we want this, then I've got to do this.
Yep. That's how you brought money in.
Yeah. So there was just, seeing the trade-off. And also like we waited a long time to have kids. We waited a long time, for her to finish her schooling. I mean, we waited to have kids for her to finish her schooling. And, where most of my peer group were having kids at 25, 24, 23, 27, 28. Like I was 32 when I had my first kid.
Oh, okay. Wow. I didn't realize you waited that long.
Yeah. My first son at 32, my second at 35, 36, my third at almost 40.
Wow. So again, random question, completely changing topics. You've made it a point to stay in shape, or get in shape, and then stay in shape.
Sure.
Was that based off of watching how other artists kind of had a big hindrance on their career, kind of going down and down? Was that because you wanted to just fight the aging process, or what was that for you?
It was yes to those things and a few other aspects too. I mean, it was it's funny. I have a chapter about this in my new book called My Health Transformation, but it was
too much Mountain Dew.
To some extent, yeah. Like, I mean, like, in your 20s, you can get away with a lot, You'll still you'll still deal with the ramifications of it. Like, I didn't get overweight in my 20s per se, but I did deal with health problems, like chronically sick. But I just thought that's why you just travel, you get chronically sick, right? It didn't matter the fact I was ingesting processed food all the time and just constantly, a steady diet of chemicals and preservatives. I didn't think about that. I just was like, nope, this is the way it is. Once my metabolism starts changing in your 30s, then you start noticing. But I was living my life in the public eye, and I'm starting to see these pictures, and I'm like, holy crap, like, I'm not happy with how I look in these pictures. So long story short, I was like, I'm going to do something about it. But I didn't necessarily know what to do, and I started off completely incorrectly. Like, I was just running constantly, emaciating myself, not able to gain muscle mass because I was running too much, and getting injured from running so much. But I thought, well, you need good cardio to be on stage. Then it was like, well, then I go through my like beach body P90X insanity phase where I'm like, I'm just going to kill it with the cardio and da-da-da-da. And then you get benefits. But then the other side is like, I'm exhausted all the time, and I'm still not where I want to be. A big switch was my son getting diagnosed with ADHD. And I'm like, well, I don't want to put him on medicine. What are some things we can do? And I just started reading about processed diet, non-organic diet. It's not a cure. Organic food doesn't cure ADHD. Yeah. But it certainly doesn't, exacerbate the problem. So then we went too far. Like, we went like overboard organic, and again, not having balance. It wasn't until I started running 5Ks. Then I started getting plantar fascia. Like, see, this is my problem. Whatever I do way too much. Yeah. Like, if I'm going to just eat poorly, I'm going to eat poorly, like, it's crazy. So it wasn't until later in my 30s and I started finding balance, and also started finding stuff that worked for me. That's the other problem. I mean, fitness industry sells you a product that they tell you one size fits all. They don't factor in your genetics. They don't factor in your height. They don't factor in that person, the other stuff that made that person. They just go, you can look like this. And that's not true. So some of it was like I had to accept the way I was to an extent. What worked with my lifestyle. So long story short, I started noticing as I was hitting an age where I should have been doing worse, I was actually doing better.
Mm-hmm.
I was running faster than I ever was. Physically, I felt stronger than I had ever been. Energy level was at the highest level. And then I noticed all of a sudden, all the chronic sickness was just disappearing.
Yeah.
Just gone.
I saw you. I saw you in that live concert on Crossover last week, and just watching you jump around the stage like that, I was tired watching you. But
and that was it. To be honest with you, the other thing was about a good 5-6 years ago, I started training for the stage.
Yeah. And see, that's smart. That's practical. I think that's practical wisdom that many more artists should be aware of, implementing as they get older.
That's the thing that I noticed my peer group. I'll be honest with you again. I was like looking around at guys my age that had fallen off, and going to my 20-year reunion, and I'm like, I don't mean to be judgmental. These guys look terrible. Yeah. And it's not that like guys I knew that were great athletes in high school just looked. Not, and I don't mean physically terrible. It's just a whole total package, and you could tell that they had spent years and years and years sewing to the flesh. And the basic gist of my training was I trained for muscle endurance.
Yep.
I mean, like to be able to do things at a high level for a long time. And I realized most of it was actually mental. Like it was a mental conditioning that has benefited me. So it's crazy. Like I was able to actually, right around 37, I ran my first sub 6 mile, which I had never been able to do even in high school. Started running a 5:30 mile, right? Which that sounds braggadocious. There's people way faster than that. But for someone that's a bodybuilder or a weightlifter, that's like, I'll never hit a 5:30 mile, right? But I don't care about deadlifts, So I've also been like, fitness is so tribal, you know what I mean? Everybody thinks what they do is the thing to do. And I think there's something you can learn from everybody. So long story short, what I was doing was working for me. It has paid off. It's been years since I've been to the doctor. It's been years that I've gotten chronically sick. Every year I'll do a body age test, and I'm consistently 10 years younger in my body chronology. So,
wow.
That's
awesome.
I don't mean that arrogantly, but it just has made such a difference. And I've even been thinking about the coronavirus right now, and everyone is so scared. And the only thing that really could protect you right now
is your immune system.
That's literally it.
Yeah. But to have a good immune system, it's what are you taking in? How active are you? What are you? So yeah. You're right. All right. So rapid fire. Last thing. These are just going to be random questions. You just simple answer. Favorite author.
Favorite author. I wish I was a smarter guy that read more. I'm not going to say the trite Apostle Paul. That's too cheating.
No Bible.
I'm trying to think of good books that I've read. I don't know if it's my favorite author, but it was a good book that I read at a rough time. It's called Do Over by Jonah Sorrentino. So that was a good book.
Okay. Oh, I do know that book, John Acuff. Yeah, he's pretty good. Your favorite album that you've made?
Somebody just asked me that today. Jonah is my favorite album, and it's really more because that was a turning point. That was like being down to your last life on Pac-Man, and all of a sudden you got 3 new bonus lives. So
that's a good analogy. Your favorite Netflix series?
Oh, that's a good one. Oh man, this is a good question.
This is a good one for people now because they're gonna go and watch it.
Right. I'm trying to think of one that, because I mean, there's a bunch that we all like or whatever, and The Office doesn't count because it's just, The Get Down was pretty dope. That hip hop one was pretty dope. I don't know. Even this stupid Tiger King one, it's so relatable because being from Florida, the insanity of what's being shown there. It's like, yep, that's Florida. Man, dude, I don't know why I'm so pumped on this. This is a really, and I'm like series junkie.
Or do you watch too many that it's hard to pick one?
You know what? I'm gonna say something totally unrelated. I'm gonna say the Cocaine Cowboy series. It's not even. I don't even think that's on Netflix, but that one is like so crazy because it's so realistic to where I grew up. So
okay, I've actually never heard of that one.
Yeah, it's not really even it's from Florida. It's pretty significant.
Yeah. All right. So promote what you want to promote and show people, tell people how they can reach you and follow you and all that.
If you want to get my book, you can go to KJ52book.com and then patreon.com/KJ52.
Sweet. All right.
Help me get a haircut because this is like quarantine here is out of control.
Yo, come to Jersey. I actually cut hair, so you come to Jersey, I'll hook you up. But yeah, that's on you. That's too much hair.
My barber is Golden Child, my old rap partner, but he's been indisposed. Yeah,
I cut my hair the other day.
That's good. I can't do the fade anymore, man. Now I just go full Chia Pet.
I probably shouldn't even say what I think that looks like.
No, go ahead. Say it.
No, you're good. That's just too much hair.
It's a lot of hair.
Yeah. Yeah, you should get rid of that. That needs to go somewhere.
Friday I cut it. Get this rat's nest back in order.
That's so funny. That was good for all the audio people that don't see the visual. But all right, sir. Well, I appreciate it. I thank you for everything. This is Absolutely. Just I have to say this as a fan. Thank you for everything that you've done throughout the years. And been an example of somebody that's followed, God's calling for your life.
My pleasure.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you for coming on and good luck.
All right, buddy.
Stay healthy and God bless.
Later.